Live on digital media from the vast and spacious VPOD-TV studios in beautiful Oak Brook, Illinois. The second place where Cermak was terminated and Roosevelt lived on. It's the Weekly Wrap with your host, Bruce Wolf, and his trusty sidekick, former Breitbart contributor and Liberty Magazine editor, Tim Slagle. This week's very special guest and possible future mayor of Chicago, Alderman Ray Lopez. And now, without further ado, Bruce Wolf.
Yes, Bruce Wolf and Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap.
Good thing you only have to do that once a week.
I'll tell you, this show, I hope it gets canceled because I want my knuckles. So, Tim, good to have you back. You weren't here for the debut of the show last week. Dobie Maxwell sat in ably for you. The problem was he has no sense of proportion. He told the best joke like 89 minutes into this, which was that he had been heckled by Donald Trump like in 1980 at a nightclub. And so he talked about going back and forth with Trump, and I actually thought Trump had the better of him, according to Dobie's story. You're a stand-up comedian. Who is the worst heckler you've ever had? Who was famous? Did you ever have a famous heckler?
A famous heckler? No, yeah. I never had a famous heckler. Usually it's a drunk bachelorette.
Oh, really?
Yeah, drunk bachelorette.
With her friends for her last go-round before they...
let me know that I've just ruined their entire wedding. Is usually what.
And even though you were wearing the police outfit and stripping down and all that, they didn't find that appealing.
You know, if I would have kept the uniform on, it might have been a better situation.
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll be talking about the cops coming up with Alderman Ray Lopez in just a moment. That's our number one segue. But speaking of hecklers, I'm a heckler. So I go out jogging. It was yesterday morning or the day before. It's the first day of school for the kids in the neighborhood. I'm jogging. And all these little urchins are wearing masks. And it's the saddest thing in the world. And I want to yell, take off the damn masks. And I want to yell at their parents, but I don't want to usurp the parents' authority because the parents have already been stripped of all authority by the state. Sure. And it's ridiculous. Do you know how many children in the United States, first of all, there are?
How many children there are?
Yeah, in the United States. What would you say?
50 million.
That's pretty good. You're in the ballpark. 75 million children. Wow. 1,600 have got COVID. 1,600. Now, that's like nothing. It's zero. This isn't a problem among children, but now we've got the whole mask regime in again, and you know that the liberals just love it because they love to tell people what to do. And these kids... And of course, they're wearing the blue masks, which don't do any good anyway. You've got to wear an N95, and try wearing an N95 mask 7 hours a day if you're a little kid. I mean, it doesn't work. It's ridiculous, and these kids have no freedom whatsoever. Remember when we were kids?
Yeah.
They didn't even have milk cartons to put our pictures on the side of it. It was ridiculous.
Well, this is third generation into bicycle helmets, though, right?
And, all right, I'm not so. Maybe I'm getting soft too because we would our bicycle would crash. Yeah. We would just lay there till we got better. Yeah. Nobody had insurance.
Knee pads on a skateboard? No. My mom already spent $2.99 on a skateboard. She isn't going to put in another couple bucks for knee pads.
That's your Christmas present too, the knee pads. So you know what I think this all went bad. I think this went bad when they started teaching sex education in the schools. They usurped authority of the parents. Now, were you taught sex ed in school?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. And I was the first one.
By nuns.
Oh, really? Was there a priest? I've heard this from the Catholics that they tell you that the women have to make time for the men because they have to pay off the marital debt. Have you ever heard that term before? The marital debt? A woman is supposed to please her man.
I tried
for the marital debt.
I tried to convince my wife that, and she demanded I show her the paperwork, and apparently I did not have a note to hold.
I don't even get to control the checkbook, so I don't even know what the debt is. But we were the first ones, and it was 9 weeks, I'll never forget it, of unmitigated laughter. The wrestling coach taught us it, and he wasn't a bad guy. Howard Byram, I'll never forget him. And he was a sinewy guy. He kept his hand in his pants, not all the way. No, he wasn't sexual or anything like that. I think he probably had a hernia or something. And he gave us this. Not a test, but he wanted us to provide synonyms for sexual terms. And I'll never forget, at one point, he collects all these papers from everybody, and he reads the answers, and he says, doesn't anybody in this class, there was like about 25 or 30 sophomore boys, in high school, and he says, doesn't anybody know any other synonym for homosexual than queer? But he did. So that was then. But then we had a summit meeting between the boys were taught, and this wasn't a boys' school. It wasn't a Catholic school like you. It was a co-ed school, but sex ed was taught separately. So the girls and the boys had a summit where we were going to talk about things.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
There's a summit. There was a class, and I remember. I thought, I'm going to learn something now. And what I learned was that a girl on a first date does not want to go roller skating. That's what I learned. And, we want to go to a movie and we want to be taken for a nice dinner. We do not want to go roller skating. And I think the first date I ever had was roller skating. So the sum and substance of what I learned was nothing. But the whole point is that the parents have yielded their authority to the state forever, and it's getting worse and worse. It's absolutely horrible.
I believe you are correct on that, and it's there's no reason for a kid to wear. A kid is not going to practice good hygiene. A kid is going to lift up his mask to pick his nose and eat it.
Right. Right. Absolutely. No, 5-year-olds, 7-year-olds. I mean, they're unwieldy. There's no way it doesn't work, and it's just an onerous imposition, and there's no basis for it. And this whole nation has a case of the vapors. I do declare. I mean, we're all Scarlett O'Hara running around right now. The statistics do not back any of this up.
No.
My high school reunion was supposed to be 50th high school reunion. Was supposed to be this weekend. It was postponed. And some people weren't going to go because they didn't want to have the chance of infecting their grandchildren. Well, you're not going to infect your grandchildren. And, I mean, it's just...
You're going to bring your grandchildren to the 50th reunion? Oh, that's going to be fun. Yeah. That's going to be fun.
Well, it could be worse looking at pictures of other people's grandchildren. I mean, gee whiz. The worst
listening to old people talk about their medication and hip replacements.
Absolutely impossible. All right, let's turn very quickly here to... So, Cuomo resigned, and... do we have a clip? Cuomo here? Yeah. Cuomo, excuse me.
I do kiss people on the forehead. I do kiss people on the cheek. I do kiss people on the hand. I do embrace people.
I'm not very meek.
I do hug people, men and women. I do on occasion say, ciao Bella. On occasion, I do slip and say sweetheart or darling.
You know what? I'm going to read that book to my grandchildren. Cuomo's, it's very Seussian. I enjoyed that.
Not on the...
he's our age, or he's actually older than you. He's like a little younger than I am. He acts as though he's from the 1940s. That's not the way we were. We didn't get to do these things. To women. He's just like, he's exempt for that because he's a nutcase.
Yeah, well,
crazy.
When you're raised in the governor's mansion, I mean,
right.
You have a different set of rules, but you are right. It does sound like a children's book. It's like, no. Not on a boat, not with a
not
goat.
In my throat. Yeah, with a goat. Yeah,
not on the lips. Not on the, I do not like, I do not like to be kissed there. Yeah. I do not want to be kissed anywhere.
So what I love, though, is that all the liberals, I mean, they were in love with this guy, even though he sent people to their deaths in nursing homes in New York.
I'm still not convinced that wasn't a Medicare reduction plan.
Oh, there you go. Right. It was Ebenezer Scrooge was the governor of New York. He wanted to decrease the surplus population. Now, I understand that. But the great thing is that they doubled down. So now they're They don't have Cuomo anymore, so now they're trying to make DeSantis a villain, and they constantly try to make him a villain, and he has thwarted them at every turn. Everybody was supposed to die because they were on the beaches last year. Now they're supposed to die because there's all these COVID cases in Florida. But the statistics, do you know that, Florida was like 27th, which is like midway through, better than Illinois. Is a proportion of the population with people dying of COVID, even though we had all the draconian measures in Illinois and Florida didn't. Plus, Florida has some disadvantages. I mean, they've got a much greater concentration of the elderly than many other states. Granted, it's warmer, and they didn't have to deal with the cold. But now, of course, this was written by Jim Garrity in National Review today, that you're seeing a spike not only in the red states, but in the blue states, and it may be because of air conditioning.
Sure,
people are inside, and
you look at the infection map, and it's like you could double for the heat index map,
right? But and then of course he was criticized for not distributing the vaccine. And then he distributed through what is that called, Publix, the grocery chain, and he got criticized for that, even though everything was kosher, everything was on the up and up. And now you see these memes with blood on his hands, and he doesn't. He absolutely doesn't. Now, of course, they're afraid of him because he's the guy who could probably bring together the coalition of the Trumpians and the rhinos and all that, but. It's more than that. People don't want, as Phil Klein wrote today, people don't want to be proven wrong. That's the problem. And these liberals are going to realize that all these measures were not necessary, and they're going to be proven wrong. Look, I'm on the right, and I don't like when I'm proven wrong too. I didn't realize, for example, that when I was calling the Cleveland Baseball Club the Indians for 50 years, that I was a racist pig. And, now what can I do to make amends? None of us wants to admit that. So anyway, coming up, we have got Alderman Ray Lopez, the next mayor of the city of Chicago, I believe. And he will be making his announcement that he, hates Lori Lightfoot.
After he gets off the phone from us.
Absolutely. On the phone, he will do it. He will announce that he is running for mayor of the great city of Chicago. It is Bruce Wolf and Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap.
Appearing on Fox News, the head of the Chicago Fraternal Order of Police, John Catanzara, ratcheted up the rhetoric.
This city is less safe because Ella French is no longer with us, because she was murdered by a violent individual that has absolutely been encouraged to do violent things by the people who run this city and state.
Visiting the hospital Saturday night, grieving CPD officers reportedly gave Mayor Lightfoot the cold shoulder. And when the mayor tried to talk to the wounded officer's father, he exploded.
The officer's father gave her a piece of his mind, and the officers up there all turned their back on the mayor, and rightly so. It was the exclamation point to the sentiment that was outside on the street level.
Bruce Wolf and Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap with Alderman Ray Lopez joining us, the 15th Ward. Thanks for coming on the show. We appreciate it, Alderman.
Tim, thank you for having me.
So you heard that clip, and of course what happened over the weekend was absolutely horrible. A 29-year-old woman, I think she had saved the life of a baby like the month before, and it's quite tragic. Let's, before we get into the acrimonious situation between you and the mayor and some other people, let's talk about solutions, if possible. Now, I just read an article by Austin Berg, I'm sure you're familiar with, and he wrote the book, The New Chicago Way, and he wrote in National Review this week that, and he actually paid, he's hardly a liberal, he actually paid more than lip service to community complaints that the police are not on their side, and points out that the city isn't really abiding by a federal consent decree to corral the police. But he then points out what a political mess this whole thing is, that there are 3 civilian oversight committees and boards, and suggests Chicago go the Los Angeles route and have 1 civilian review board and have the mayor get out of the way. Is that what the problem is? It's an organizational problem in the city?
I don't necessarily believe it's an organizational issue. I think it's just a mindset that we have in the city that there are no repercussions for criminals. We see it in the courts. We see it in our state's attorney, who thinks she's the public defender more than she's the one who's supposed to be fighting for the law-abiding citizens of the city. And we see it in how many politicians, including the mayor, view, discuss, and talk about the police. And all of that came to a head this weekend, as we saw when Ella French was murdered on the streets of the city of Chicago. Her partner is still struggling. And, the third officer, who we cannot forget about, is dealing with a lot of issues, having survived the incident, even though he himself is a hero as well.
Now, it's interesting. I mean, you mentioned the state's attorney and this whole George Soros influence nationwide on how they're becoming more like defense attorneys than actual prosecutors. And then, of course, the police have these 12-hour shifts and no vacations, and they're not even allowed to, seems like not even allowed to have foot chases anymore. So there's all kinds of things that are crimping the police. And I noticed that Senator Durbin weighed in, and since he doesn't have much leeway, he actually gave a suggestion that I've heard conservatives come up with, which is that we should go after straw purchasers, which is interesting because how are you going to go after the girlfriends and even boyfriends in the case of this matter with the murder of Officer French, when you're letting out convicted felons on with very little restraint? It seems like it's not going to happen. The federal prosecutors, prosecutors never go after the straw purchasers, even though it might actually be a halfway decent idea.
Without question, you have to go after those individuals. But we just saw a federal judge let that straw purchaser go out on bond, not viewing him as a danger to our city or to residents.
All right, Bruce Wolf and Tim Slagle on the weekly wrap. Now, when we were so rudely interrupted, I love the podcast world. Alderman Lopez was in a car. Now he's out of a car. He's in LaGuardia Airport. He is masked, and he is ready to come home to Chicago. And this time, Alderman, I'm not going to let you interrupt us. If you have to miss your flight, there's always another flight to Chicago. Okay?
Absolutely.
They have to go. Now, I'll even ask you right now before we get back to the. You're vaccinated, right?
I am.
Everybody's vaccinated. Take a stand now and take off that mask, Alderman Lopez. Take off that mask.
I know there are some people back home that love to see me in federal lockup, but a mask is not the way to go.
Okay. So, I mean, that's the rule. I mean, you have to have. That is actually the rule at airports now, that you have to wear a mask? Okay.
All airports, actually. It's federally required now. And actually, when I was going through security, there was a gentleman who decided now is the apropos time to take his mask off. And they ejected him like that.
Oh, my goodness. Did he have an aisle seat so that you can grab it? Or anyway, so
last time I was in the airport, I wanted to see how far I could get without a mask, and I went all the way. I got up to it. They checked my baggage, and I got all the way up to the TSA. And as soon as I got to the TSA, she said, "Could you put your mask on, please?"
But she let you walk through with the Uzi. That was the great thing about it. Yeah. So,
and I give her my ID, and then she goes, "Can you take your mask down now, please?" There we go.
All right, Alderman, back to the serious discussion here. We were talking about Senator, let me refresh your recollection. I'll have the court reporter read back my question, which I stammered through. It was basically that Senator Durbin is he can't criticize Kim Foxx, say that she's soft on crime. So he's plea bargained his way down to going after straw purchasers. And this is actually a conservative idea. Go after the straw purchasers, but who's going to arrest the girlfriends and boyfriends in this case when we're letting the criminals out with barely any restraint?
It sounds good to say we're going to go after the straw purchases, but in the end, if there's no consequences to anything that we're doing, it won't matter. And we saw, even after the horrific, tragic murder of Ella French this Saturday, the individual responsible for that straw purchase barely got a slap on the wrist from the federal magistrate dealing with that issue. What we need to do is go after gang culture, which is so permeating every neighborhood in the city of Chicago. And nobody, except for a very small few, including myself, have ever called those gangbangers out or gone directly after them. Because so oftentimes those gangbangers have family members who are voters, who politicians are too afraid and too timid to tackle for what they're doing in those neighborhoods.
Is there, and even Austin Berg, the article that I referenced before, was talking about and this is a conservative guy too, writing for National Review, that there's a lack of trust from minorities. I mean, you even see it where minorities don't want to get the COVID shot because they don't trust the government, and they've been fed a line by the media, especially over the last year, about how you shouldn't trust the police, you shouldn't trust the government, so they naturally don't even want to get COVID shots. How are you going to get back this trust, and do the police merit the trust of the community?
Well, I think definitely, the misinformation that swirls around social media, Twitter, Facebook, all of those definitely has an impact. We just saw earlier yesterday where a fake letter by Good Kids Mad City alleging that the FOP president wrote a very ignorant email to them, threatening them basically, turned out to be false.
Right.
But yet they refused to take that down. They refused to even acknowledge that it was wrong. And they allowed that fake email to be viewed and shared over 5,000 times. So I think we all have a responsibility towards changing that perception that police are the enemy, and we have to learn how to start working together. I think there are some concrete ways that we can do that. I think we all lose out from, I know when I was a child, and probably you as well, we used to have officers come to the schools, introduce themselves. I mean, beyond just officer friendly, you have positive experiences. And, many left organizations, namely CTU and others, do this big push to get them out of the schools so that they can perpetuate that narrative that they are the enemy. And I think that is where we have to really focus and nail down is, what are your leaders saying about police and these interactions? Because if every time a politician stands up and says, killer cop, that's not helping us.
It's interesting. I think, refresh my recollection on this, that for the majority of Gary McCarthy's tenure, Chicago seemed to be improving, and Chicago was looked at as one of the leaders in the country. And then, of course, Laquan McDonald happened, and Rahm threw McCarthy under the bus, and then Rahm was run over by the bus himself. And there is this complete mistrust right now. And Lori Lightfoot was supposed to be the person to bring everybody back together, but somehow the city isn't coalescing.
Well, I think that definitely when McCarthy was here and under Rahm Emanuel, there was more of an emphasis on addressing the little things, the broken window policy that he brought from New York City, where I'm at right now, where you catch the smaller issues before they snowball into bigger issues. And he was good for that. And Rahm Emanuel put and invested with the city council, 1,600 new officers on the streets of the city of Chicago so that we could ensure that we had enough manpower to cover the beats, to answer the 911 calls so that you never had issues of backlog. Then came Lori Lightfoot. And all of that went away in a matter of 2 years. Last budget, she eliminated over 614, I think is the exact number of police officer positions in the city's budget. I mean, that's the equivalent of 2 police districts you just wiped out. And we continue to see bad narratives, bad policies coming from her through Superintendent Brown and his, number one assistant, Eric Carter, where you can't chase them on foot. You can't chase criminals in your vehicle. You can't tase them out of fear that they might fall and injure themselves on their own weapons, the criminals' weapons. You just have a cacophony of bad decisions coming out of this group, all geared towards protecting criminals and ignoring victims and law-abiding citizens.
The one for me that really stands out is that you get to shoplift as long as it's not over $1,000.
Right.
Granted, inflation is going to take care of that pretty soon. But was that Lori Lightfoot? Was that Lori Lightfoot? Was that
3 pieces of plywood?
It's a ridiculous situation, but it's interesting. I don't see how anything's going to remedy this situation very quickly. It seems like we've really regressed. I mean, you mentioned the broken windows policy of basically from Giuliani, and at one point I think there was somebody in city government, even the city treasurer, who had written an op-ed in the Tribune about let's bring back stop and frisk. But we seem so far away from that right now.
No, without a doubt. We are a city that has become an enabler to criminality at every level. You can't have discussions about how to solve violence or crime without immediately being accused of being racist in our city. And as someone who represents African American, Latinos in an overwhelmingly minority ward, I can tell you that they are just as concerned in those communities about crime and safety of their children and their elders as any other neighborhood in the city of Chicago. They want the police to put the bad guys away. Unfortunately, the loud chorus comes from the small minority on the left that says that, we have to make up for the sins of the past by ignoring the crimes of the present. And that helps nobody in the city of Chicago.
Okay, when we come back, you will make your announcement for the mayor's job. You have a minute to figure it all out, okay? It would help if you took the mask off. That's all I'm saying.
I thought you were going to say I was going to be in Chicago when we come back.
It may be. The three-part. This is Planes, Trains, and Automobiles with Alderman Lopez.
An answer.
Well, no, I want an answer.
Yeah.
You commented on everybody. I want an answer. It's not something you ignore. This is a question that I have.
I think you're 100% full of is what I think. If you think
no offense,
hold on.
Who are you to tell me I'm full of
If you think we were not ready and we stood by and let the neighborhood go up, there's nothing intelligent that I can say to you.
Well, maybe you should come out and see what's going on.
The stupidest thing I have ever heard. I understand you want to preen. I understand that you think that you...
Mayor, you need to check your attitude. That's what you need to do.
All right, that was Bruce Wolf and Tim Slagle here blushing, having heard Alderman Lopez, who's joining us right now from LaGuardia Airport, the 15th Ward Alderman Ray Lopez.
I see you found the favorite ringtone of so many city employees.
It apparently is. And could you just give us a little context for the a greater expletive deleted tirade than Lee Elia had against Cub fans about a quarter of a century ago? What was going on between you and Mayor Lightfoot at that point in that discussion?
That clip is from the day after the first rioting and looting that took place in the city of Chicago over 13 months ago. And many of us were pleading with the mayor to think outside of that little central business loot box that she created and start defending the neighborhoods. And we had seen what was going on. We knew what was coming. We were begging her for resources to protect communities. And not only did she not want to ignore it, she then decided that was the most opportune time to brush me off and ignore not only my community, but the concerns we all had. And to be quite honest, I just wasn't having it at all. I listened to her try to bulldoze her way through to avoid any kind of solutions that came from the city council. And I just went off. I mean, I don't know how you go through those nights. And that will be a seminal moment in my personal life that I will never forget. Listening and hearing the windows shattering all around me, people yelling and screaming and not knowing, how I was going to protect my family while it seemed that all of the world was falling apart in the city of Chicago that day.
Now, the interesting
for her to brush it off, was just unacceptable.
The interesting thing
is, oddly enough, if I may, Bruce.
No, go ahead.
Oddly enough, then the Inspector General issues a report several months later, basically vindicating and validating everything that I had raised that day, saying that the CPD and the mayor's office and her administration were woefully unprepared, complete breakdown of communication, and did in fact leave neighborhoods to defend for themselves during those 3 days, and then subsequently again a month or so later.
Well, we were all watching the video from downtown because that's where the cameras were, and it didn't look like downtown was being protected too much either at that point. And yet, of course, the concentration of police was there, and forget about the neighborhoods.
Oh no, absolutely. And even at that point, you had aldermen that were getting additional resources. They were getting some of the assets, the garbage trucks and whatnot, to try and block off streets. Everyone recognized that we were being invaded from individuals coming down from Wisconsin and through Indiana in box trucks. We knew it. We heard it. We were getting reports on it. But the moment that it became public or you tried to discuss it, she refuted it as fake news.
Now, it's
one of the people that she loves so much.
Right. It's interesting. You talk about broken windows policy, and it's always bothered me as a spoiled suburbanite that, you'd see these demonstrations going on that would block the expressways, and nobody would ever do anything about it. And I was thinking, why? You can't really do that. But you can do that. And, of course, there's a slippery slope. Once you're allowed to do that, you're allowed to do anything. Or am I just being, one of these white bread Republicans talking about this?
No, Bruce, I think you and Tim both remember when they were shutting down the Dan Ryan and when people were starting those marches. And we saw what that ultimately led to. We saw where the confrontation over a statue boiled over into solid, basically, water containers being whipped at police officers' heads, where sharpened weapons were being used against our officers, trying to prevent people from destroying public property. We saw where what was originally labeled as righteous protest by the mayor of the city of Chicago turned violent and, in some cases, destroying whole communities. And all the while, all the mayor could bring herself to say was that no one should ever hurt anybody else, shouldn't hurt law enforcement, and then turn around and go on and give 14 tweets on how to report a police officer if you felt they were too mean to you or didn't tell you their name during the civil rioting and looting of the city of Chicago.
You'd think that if she were even-handed, people might be able to stomach it, but it seems like she caves to the Chicago Teachers Union, is benign with regard to them, but on the other hand, every time the police do something, and then you get to the point where, you've got Carter, who didn't even let the bagpipe ceremony go on, gets caught on tape. It's metastasized into, to something really, really bad between her and the police.
Well, not just her absolutely between her and the police, but we see this not so pronounced, but those of us in government see it through some of the other departments as well. The mayor's a great micromanager, but she only has her eye on the ball on 4 departments: police, public health being chief among them. But there are 23 different other city departments that get no attention and are just running amok, doing their own thing. And that's not what's good for the city of Chicago. And even when people do make mistakes, as we saw this past weekend with Eric Carter not letting the Emerald Society go and do full honors for Ella French, the mayor refused to acknowledge that that was a mistake. Actually, she came up with some nonsensical lie about the medical examiner's office being worried about COVID.
Yeah, John Cass had a great column about that. He's now doing his own website, but it was really, really good. And he had talked to you about that, just saying that, this is a bunch of BS. There isn't, Tony Preckwinkle didn't make any rules along those lines. Tony Preckwinkle was more likely to let Lori Lightfoot, hang in the wind. So, yeah, there was no rule.
And how do you go from saying you're worrying about COVID with 100 officers in the parking lot, but yet you had 400,000 people in Grant Park, sweaty, nasty, and rolling around on top of each other for Spread-a-Palooza? It was outside.
Well, no, actually, the science is settled. There was no spread at Lollapalooza. Have you seen that on the news today?
I think there was like 100 people that tested
Yeah, but they
positive.
didn't spread it.
No, they didn't. Well,
it was contained.
I'm telling you, this is your moment. You've got to seize the moment. Take off that mask, Alderman Lopez. I feel like Reagan saying, "Tear down that wall, Mr. Gorbachev." This is the moment when you just.
I feel the TSA breathing down my neck right now as it is anyway. So.
All right. So when can we expect your announcement to run for mayor?
But I'll be perfectly honest. Many have asked me. Many people have told me I should do it anyway. Our city needs change, absolutely. I can guarantee that I'll do everything in my power to make sure we don't get 2 terms of Lori Lightfoot. Whether or not that's me, I have to make that decision. But I think I also owe it to the residents who sent me to city council, because I said when I first ran and was elected that I would not leave them just to jump around for higher office, because I represent communities where leaders came and go just to make a name, and that's not what I'm about. I love serving my people. But it's getting to the point now where you can't do that with this mayor. You can't do it with a mayor who doesn't understand neighborhoods. Hell, you can't do it with a mayor who's not from Chicago anymore. And I think Chicago definitely needs someone who's born and bred in the city. Yeah. Yes, that's me. But we'll see what that is.
Well, we appreciate your coming on with us, and thank you, for the planes, trains, and automobiles excursion that we had from the Uber to the airport and. What flight? Can we track your flight on the way home to Chicago? Can we greet you at
flight? I don't know what it is.
The Delta variant flight. Sure, yeah, right.
The Delta
Hence the mask.
There we go. We appreciate it very much. Thank you so much, Alderman Lopez, and wish you the best.
Thank you for having me, and never give up on Chicago.
Oh, I gave up it in 1958, but that's another story. Thank you, Alderman. Appreciate it. Bye-bye. So that was the Alderman. Okay. How do you like those apples?
I thought we were going to get the announcement out of him.
Yeah, no. That doesn't happen. So,
Sean Hannity almost got me. So
he did. All right. This is the after show with the Alderman when he can really talk. He can let his hair down, let the mask off, and really tell us.
In the after
Sean Hannity, Sean Hannity's vaccinated now too. All the Fox guys are saying. They're Tucker Carlson changed his tune. I think Rupert Murdoch ordered everybody to start talking like it's not a conspiracy, and they're all like pro-vax right now. But that's interesting. So you were on with Hannity?
I was on with Hannity the other night.
Okay, it's hard for me to follow your schedule. I don't even know how you squeezed us in. So, what's your next? Are you playing the Improv in Schaumburg next? What's the next one?
What is that? What did we used to have? Zanies?
Zanies, sure, absolutely. Tim's played.
Yeah,
at Zanies.
Still there.
Tim's played at Zanies.
Is it still there?
It's still there. Yeah, it's still on Wells Street.
Maybe they could take Lori.
How we have the first mayoral debate there, and. She'll have Donna Brazil come up with a question.
We should have city council there. I actually saw WGN's Pat Tomasulo said that we should bring back golden gloves for the politicians.
There we go.
I said, sign me up.
There we go.
I'd be more than happy to knock out a few of them.
You'll take on two at a time. It'll be tag team. They can have two. Preckwinkle and Lightfoot against you.
It's going to be hard to find someone in Lori Lightfoot's weight class, though.
Not bad. All right, now we're going to finally say goodbye. We've had 3 interruptions. This is the most disjointed interview we've ever had, but that's fine because, like in The Godfather, they're going to make it look good. Make it look good. Afterwards.
Editing does wonders.
Oh, it'll be terrific. It'll all come out in the wash. Thanks so much again. See you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Alderman.
All right, guys, take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bruce Wolf and Tim Slagle on the weekly. Who's there? That's not a nice knocker, I don't think. So Tim, all right, we're going to do the New Yorker caption contest right now, even though this isn't actually a cartoon from the New Yorker. But I always wanted to win that.
I can't wait.
So here we have, this is the Pope. And
That'd be something serious, huh?
You see that? And so my caption is on the phone and he's saying, I'm sorry, but consubstantiation is a deal breaker. So what would you say? Do you have one? I'm putting you on the spot here. But
yeah, I looked at that. I go, sorry guys, it's the big guy.
Oh, there you go. There you go. I like that.
Got to take this.
I like that. All right, now. So I'm a wannabe newspaper editor. Of course, there's no more newspapers, but I still get the Tribune, and they have. I get it online, but they still send you every day the front page of the Tribune. I don't know who still gets it, the actual newspaper, and they probably shouldn't put it out, because take a look at this front page of the Tribune from the other day. Do you notice something weird about it? They have the word pillar in 2 different headlines. Now, the whole point of having a front page is so you have this nice modular makeup, the rectangles and the nice picture and all that, and you don't have words repeated in headlines like the word pillar. Maybe an A or an N if you even have that in a headline. But that's just...
Especially if you're talking about Mike Lindell.
Exactly. So my pillar. Exactly. I got it. Took me a while.
Because that would be a spelling error, I think.
But that would be good. That would be good if the third story had been, he's no longer the pillar of the election movement, because he got, according to a Washington Times story just today or yesterday, even his own expert says they don't have the goods on China anymore, which kind of hurts when you've hired a guy.
And and set up a big seminar,
right? And people are walking out of it, or they're sleeping on their My Pillows there. All right, so that's a problem. Now there was a story there about Tony Esposito, if you saw, Tony Esposito died at 78 years old. Did you?
And he was a pillar?
He was, he was between the posts at the Blackhawk games. Good old number 35, Tony Esposito. And, of course, I remember him. Don't mock me, don't make fun of me because you're the latecomer to Chicago, aren't you?
I didn't get here till 86.
Yeah, so I remember April the 5th, 1970. Okay, Tony Esposito in goal for the Blackhawks against the Montreal Canadiens. The Blackhawks had already sewn up first place. This was the last game of the regular season, but the Canadiens needed to win a game, or get a certain number of goals to make the playoffs. Otherwise, the great exalted Montreal Canadiens weren't going to make the playoffs. And Jack Corman got me a seat in mezzanine, by myself, and my father and sister were sitting. If I get into too much detail, because I'm starting to cry over this. They wound up pulling their goalie, Rogatien Vachon, midway through the second period, I believe, because they realized they couldn't win the game, and they just wanted to score a certain number of goals on the Hawks. So they actually had a de facto power play for half the game. And you're staring at me like, what is this game called? Hockey. I like curling. I don't care about this. All right. But the point is that Tony Esposito was with the Blackhawks, and he was fending off shot after shot after shot against the Montreal Canadiens. And the Blackhawks won the game 10-2, and the Canadiens didn't make the playoffs. And then, of course, the next year, Tony let in a goal from center ice, because Jacques Lemaire in the fog, in the seventh game of the Stanley Cup playoffs. There was fog there because it was so hot in the stadium, and maybe Wirtz was too cheap to air condition the joint. I don't know. He shoots from center ice. Tony doesn't see the puck, and it goes past him, and the Blackhawks lose that game, lose the Stanley Cup. And, of course, they didn't win the Cup till, 2010. And I've got to think that the fog is finally lifted for Tony. As he's in that eternal goal right now, and
he's at St. Peter's Gate, just making sure the Canadians don't.
But I think what happened with Tony was that he hit the suffering that he had as a Blackhawk, ultimately led to the Blackhawks winning and made the experience of winning those 3 cups later all the richer, and. I'd like to think there's a butterfly effect there. And by butterfly, I mean the style of goalie that he was, the flop in the crease. Right. That's my tribute to Tony Esposito. All right, what's the next thing we got? Speaking of crying, the Field of Dreams game is tonight. Do you care about that at all?
Not really.
Okay, so here's
I get what's happening is that they built a movie set in Iowa, and it's the greatest thing that ever happened in Iowa.
Them's fighting. Bring back Toby Maxwell right now. All right. Here's the thing: the Field of Dreams. When you see Field of Dreams in the movies, there's a moment there at the end when there's all these cars lined up. And it looks like a funeral procession because their lights are on. But in fact, it's the opposite. It's a resurrection session because the dads are going to be coming out of the fog. Oh, no, wait, that was Tony Esposito. They were going to come out of the corn stalks and have a catch with their kids. And I had to choke back the tears in the movie theater because I didn't want to salt my popcorn anymore than it was. But I did. I actually felt like crying. I mean, that's how touching that movie is. The rest of the movie is garbage, but that moment is it's one of the best Kevin Costner baseball movies there are. Among the Kevin Costner oeuvre of baseball movies.
So the White Sox are going to come out of the cornfield and have a catch? Is that what's going on tonight?
What I wanted to do on the broadcast is show them having a catch from the movie. They'll play that clip. But then I want them to show a clip from Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story. Do you recall that? Where, you remember him? He's the country singer, whatever, and he has all these illegitimate children, and then he has a catch with all these kids that he doesn't even know that they're his. And so I think the juxtaposition of that would
kind of like the
resonate.
Biden family reunion, isn't
it? So anyway, that's good. That's very, very good. All right, what do you want to talk about? We got a couple of minutes left here. I've exhausted everything. Oh, Jeopardy. Jeopardy has a good tweet from Mark Potash of the Sun-Times, and I think he's blocked me, so this is not. I'm not trying to make him feel good. But he said if a show has two hosts, it has none at all. And Jeopardy now has two hosts to replace Alex Trebek. I still recognize Art Fleming as the host.
Sure, I'm that old too.
Of Jeopardy, but
never liked Trebek much. Can I say that now?
I actually was on the air once with Trebek. He came on the Brandmeier show, and he was giving us Jeopardy questions and everything. And my attitude to him was, why do you think you're so smart? You're just asking the questions. You're giving the answers. Just because you can read the answers doesn't mean you're a smart guy. And I conveyed that to him.
I didn't like that thing he did that always reminds me of a soccer game in Spanish. It's that you can't understand anything until they say Budweiser. And I think French people, I think French people would watch Jeopardy. They couldn't understand a thing until there was a French word, and Trebek had to actually pronounce it. And I saw it one time, and he said, "This record label was named for the nickname of Detroit."
Okay. Yeah, no, it's look, I know Jeopardy champions. Jim Pethenkukas, the American Enterprise Institute, a fan of mine. Yeah, he was a Jeopardy champion. But I haven't watched the show in ages. I mean, I've watched like Saturday Night Live routines, Black Jeopardy and things, but I think I've gone beyond game shows. I feel like I'm wasting my life if I'm watching that or Wheel of Fortune, because I watched all that stuff when I was a kid. You remember like Concentration with Hugh Downs?
There wasn't anything else on. I mean, they were cheap to produce, and people would watch it.
And you were ditching school pretending that you were sick. Hey, Mom, I got COVID. Yeah, I know it's not coming for another 50 years, but I got it. I want to stay home. You'd watch all the game shows.
Sure.
But every time I think of one, it just gives me the flashback to my childhood when
being sick,
when I was pretending that I was sick. So yeah.
So one host is the executive producer of the show.
Yeah,
which is kind of like he just kind of gave himself a raise, isn't it?
That's great. I mean, because all producers are wannabe broadcasters. Come here, Chris. Come on, do the show right now. And they always think they can do it better than you can. Oh yeah.
Well, I think in Chris's case he might be.
He might. We'll get to prove it in the bonus segment. But so there's
and then the other one, the woman is
from.
For the Big Bang?
Third Rock from the Sun. Yeah, Big Bang. One of those. Yeah, exactly. Mayim Bialik. Yeah,
she's only going to be on for special events.
Right.
So it's not really the producer stealing it.
Here's what I don't get is if I were the producer, I'd feel I'm not good enough for prime time. You got to have you got to have Sheldon's girlfriend, sell Jeopardy. Doesn't Jeopardy sell itself? I mean, it's Pat Sajak when they have the primetime version of Wheel of Fortune, if they ever had it, give it up to Alec Baldwin? I don't think so. So, anyway, it was a blast doing the show with you. Alderman Ray Lopez, he's a keeper.
Yeah.
That guy, I think he is going to be...
Next mayor.
I got a feeling, unless Richie Daley wants to come back for a 15th term. I think you're right about that. Anyway, it's great. We'll see you next week. Same time, same bat channel. Bruce Wolf and Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap.
Kid. Well, first of all, I wasn't afraid of the puck. All my friends were afraid of it because we had no masks or anything. It didn't bother me. I was a bit more rebellious, I guess, but that's how it started. And then we played, and then I was a younger guy, and I ended up in the net.
And the rest,
unfortunately,
the rest is history.
That's why I'm a little bit retarded. Yeah,
it's okay. He died. Good old number 35, and in goal, number 35, Tony Esposito.
Sounds like he was in that fog you were talking about.
Yeah, right. Well, hockey players are known to they're the nicest athletes in the world of all the major sports athletes. Well, if you consider hockey a major sport. It's my favorite. Bobby Hull's my favorite athlete of all time, in spite of the fact that he was anti-Semitic, a wife beater, and a drunk. But it didn't matter because I went to see Bobby at the games with my dad. We saw the games in the movie theaters because Wirtz was too cheap to let anybody see them on television. So, he's my guy.
You used to go to the movies to watch a hockey game? Is that?
we watched like an Annie Oakley serial, and and then there would be,
and it was a nickel,
and Gloria Swanson, and the organist, at the movie theater was actually the organist for the hockey games as well. Al Melgard at the stadium was a 9-fingered organist. And that was the biggest organ, if I may say so, that in captivity, the Barton organ at the Chicago Stadium. And he had 9 fingers.
Huh.
And yet he managed to play the tab theme. He would not play like Bach's Passacaglia and Fugue in C minor there, which is, what that organ deserved. He would play... Put the robust flavor in tab. That's what he did. Okay. There we go.
Man.
Yeah.
I did not know that one.
Yeah. Okay. Is this? Do we have anything else in our bonus round, or are we done?
We're done. Yeah, it's 30 seconds, Bruce.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
We are. I'm going to channel my inner Trebek. I will pronounce French words with my 4 years of high school French.
Okay. Me too. Moi aussi.
Much like a Hispanic newscaster, when she signs off her name or has one word of Spanish within her story,
exactly.
It becomes...
Well, I used to I worked with this woman, Lisa Parker, at Channel 5, and she insisted when she was news anchoring to refer to Chile. And I would say, well, we don't call Israel Eretz Yisrael. Why do we have to say Chile? I don't get it.
It's Angela Merkel of Deutschland.
Right. Angela Merkel. No, but she was just trying to, she's white bread Parker, trying to show, hey, I got my, Hispanic props. There we go.
So this is a new game.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys remember, the New York Times was fact-checking the Babylon Bee.
Oh, okay.
And they did not realize it was a satire site. For those that don't know, the Babylon Bee is they call it the Right Onion.
I know the Babylon Bee. I don't know the New York Times. I know their crossword puzzle, but I don't know. Okay.
So do you read the Babylon Bee?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Yeah. So there's some good funny headlines. And like the Onion, the headline's usually the funny part. Then you get more than 3 sentences in, and it just kind of falls apart.
Right. It's like a Saturday Night Live sketch.
So what
or this podcast.
Yeah.
Thankfully, Tim is there to pick it up. Yeah.
So what I did was I pulled some headlines from they're not all New York Times, but of the ilk, Washington Post, New York Times, and then I pulled some Babylon Bees. And you guys are going to decide, is it the Babylon Bee headline, or is it the NYT, Babylon Bee, or the NYT?
Okay,
because you have to have an alliteration or a rhyme to make it a good segment.
I agree. That's what's going to save it.
So I did have to find, let's be honest, the more unfunny headlines from the Babylon Bee.
Sure.
And the funnier headlines from the Times.
Yeah.
Correct. So let's start with the first one, gentlemen.
Okay.
Now, this is just a yes or a no, not in the murky area that we have when we play the Snopes game. So here it is. Start freaking out. Here are the 10 new variants you should be super worried about.
Oh, good. I'm going to say that's a New York Times headline, and it goes all the way up to Omega, probably.
Yeah, I say that's the T.
Babylon Bee.
New York Times had only 9.
This game's not going to be as easy as I thought it was.
It's tough.
All right, I could read a couple of them, but quite honestly, not even that funny once you got into it as well. All right. How Mitch learned to stop worrying and love a bill.
Is this referring to Mitch McConnell? And okay.
You want me to?
Okay.
No. I'm saying New York Times again.
Yeah, New York Times.
Correct. This was Washington Post, but close enough on the New York Times.
Right.
Well, you could do the WP.
I think we need to spice this up with a little more Barton organ from Al Melgard.
What's that tab thing again?
Oh, and he played 3 Blind Mice for the officials. Okay, yeah.
3.
Okay.
At the Texas Capitol, a day for arrest warrants, not legislation.
Oh, that's the New York Times.
Times, yeah.
Correct.
All right.
So I believe that was the first one you guys got.
No. We
got the last one.
Fine.
We're 2 out of 3. It's one. I forgot that you said that these were going to be the not funny Babylon Bee headlines.
And then Al Melgard would go.
If this segment comes back, it will just be for Bruce's mouth organ.
I wanted
mouth organ.
I wanted to grow up to be the organ, not the organist, but the actual organ itself at Kaminsky Field. Go ahead. Is this the last one?
No, there's two left.
Okay, because I'm noticing that Alderman Lopez, who I'm seeing on my monitor, is almost at his destination right now.
Here we go.
He's giving a lift ride to somebody. Okay, yes.
I believe it's in New York.
Okay.
Man highlights the entire Bible since all of it is inspired by the Word of God.
That's a good one, and I think that's not only Babylon Bee worthy, it's Onion worthy. That's how good it is. That's good.
Man highlights Bible.
Man
this is
highlights
above
entire
Tim's
Bible
pay
since
grade.
All of it is inspired
Yeah, it's a
by the Word
Babylon
of
Bee.
God.
It's very funny.
Okay, yeah, it's a B.
It is a Babylon.
Yeah.
Actually, there's two. After resignation for sexual harassment, Cuomo immediately hired by CNN.
I think you came up with that. It's a Babylon Bee. Well, he's going to get hired, but his brother's going to get fired for having placated his brother. There you go.
Yeah, that's definitely B.
Yeah, B.
You guys are
B.
The final one.
Okay, final.
They worry the Johnson & Johnson shot isn't enough. A new study offers answers and questions.
That sounds like the New York Times or the Weekly Reader. It's fine.
Weekly Reader.
Yeah. Junior Scholastic.
I'm going B, just so that way we can.
Gave it to Bruce.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for caving like that, Tim. That's a teammate. That's giving it up. Sacrifice bunt.
One of us had to win.
Okay. Thank you.